I want to talk about addiction. So I don't know how many of you have met addicts. I don't know how many of you have addicts in your family, in your life. Um, sorry, my sewing machine is right beneath the camera, and I noticed something. I'm messing with it. Addiction is a very complicated thing, both for the people who suffer with the addiction and for the people who love them. And there are people who want to believe that addiction makes you a bad person. And that's very problematic, and it's been bugging me. So I don't know how many of you keep up with Johnny Depp, the actor. Right now, he is in court with his ex-spouse, suing her because she accused him of physical, sexual, and sexual domestic abuse. He says that he did not commit this abuse on her. I believe him. I have believed him for years. Now, in this trial, it is being tried publicly. Not only does he say he did not abuse her physically or sexually, but she abused him physically and emotionally, verbally. And not only does he say that, he proves it. He's shown proof. I've listened to literal hours, tens of hours of the evidence itself, as well as legal and professional minds analyzing the evidence. I've listened to probably a week's worth, many weeks worth. And I firmly believe that he is innocent of domestic abuse, of sexual violence, physical violence. He probably said some shitty things to her. He definitely said some shitty things to her. But you have to understand, he's saying these things to a person who is physically abusing him. And he's not hitting back physically. So as a defense, he says shitty things. I've been there. And one of the major things coming out in this case is that he has dealt with addiction. He's never hidden that or lied about it. But his ex-wife's team, legal team, and the people who support her have used his addiction to try to support the claims she's made. And if you're not watching that trial, you're not hearing her out of her own mouth, you're not seeing the evidence she's brought, you can't have an opinion, because the claims she has made are insane. Like, the woman's a psychopath. She's nuts. In my opinion. I'm not diagnosing anybody, but in my opinion, there is a lot of delusion and instability in that person. The inability to take accountability, to tell the truth, even if you're faced with the evidence of your actions, with your own words even. It's like her brain doesn't work. Like, she's like, nope, that didn't happen, but we're looking at it happen. It's that meme of, is this your wallet, Patrick? And the guy's like, Patrick's like, yeah, is this your name? Is this your address? This is your picture? So this is your wallet? Nope, not my wallet. Like, it's one of those situations, and it's very upsetting. But like I said, one of the things that has come out has been the idea that being an addict is a spiritual flaw, it's a character flaw. It makes you a bad person. And if you're an addict, then you're automatically any other bad thing someone says you are. And that is so unfair. That is so wrong. That is so inaccurate with the evidence that we have. the majority of people, at least in the United States, who are reported, who've reported, medically to have had an addiction, who say they're dealing with addiction, generally are doing it to escape some sort of pain, to escape some sort of unpleasant, situation. Most of our addicts in the United States are addicted to prescription medicine. These are things that were meant to help them, again deal with pain. Usually it's physical pain, and they receive opioids. They receive, different sort of narcotics to help manage their symptoms. And then they become addicted, and this makes their symptoms worse, because when they, if they don't take a dose, or they don't up their dose, the pain, their tolerance for the pain becomes less. Their tolerance for the drug becomes higher. And then we get into this vicious, dangerous cycle of trying to escape pain, but creating different kinds of pain. Emotional pain, spiritual pain, pain for our loved ones, pain because we know that we don't want to be addicted. And I say I've never had an addiction to narcotics, maybe video games, but even that, I don't think I've ever had a true addiction. But I say we because we are human, we are all connected, and because I grew up in a family of addicts, to the point where I thought I had an addiction for a while. I thought I had a drinking problem. It wasn't an addiction. It was binge drinking. It was habitual drinking. It was vicinity drinking. It was like everyone else is drinking all the time, so am I. And I was drinking from the time I was 14, drinking heavy, hard, until probably 5 or 6 years ago, very regularly, consistently. And when I decided to not drink anymore, I just didn't. And that's how I know it wasn't an addiction, because an addiction is when your body truly craves and needs that thing. It feels like if you don't have that thing, you might die. You might lose your everything if you don't get fixed. My mother is an addict, and in the past, I would take it personally. I would let myself judge her. I would get angry with her. Despite having some idea, and I learn more all the time, but despite having some idea of what her childhood was like, her life was like before she found crack, I would still I didn't understand how addiction worked when I was younger, when I was even in my early 20s. I didn't understand. I didn't want to think too much about it because it was upsetting. It's always upsetting. However, I was always very lucky to be able to remember, or see, even not even just remember because it's still happening, to see that my mom is a very loving, giving person, especially with, someone needs a home. You can stay on my couch, you can camp on my floor. I don't think she lets people in her home, and I'm not that way. I don't like people in my house. People I'm not enthusiastic about being around. I don't want those people in my house. My mom, even if she doesn't necessarily like or get along with a person, or a person isn't treating her very well, she offers what she has to people, and she always has. And the worst of her addiction, for me, was when I was a child, because it ended up meaning I didn't see her a lot. It ended up meaning she would spend a lot of time in her room or in the bathroom getting high, and I spent most of my time alone in my bedroom, and because that's where I found peace. But of course, that meant that my little sister also had to spend her time alone. She didn't necessarily like that. There were very lonely moments growing up in the house with an addict as a mother. And on the flip side, there are also moments where her addiction had nothing to do with what we were doing. There were many, many memories I have of us sitting and watching American Idol or The Simpsons or whatever was on TV, watching the Sci-Fi Channel, watching horror movies. I like to joke that horror is my home because as a kid, we watched horror. My mom loved horror. She can't do it now. She has nightmares. But then we watched horror movies all the time. I watched things that now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, that's super inappropriate. I can't believe Catherine let us watch that. That's extremely inappropriate. But we did, I have so many memories of her just being my mama, and mingled in with all those memories of when she stopped being my mama. And the idea that her being an addiction means that as a person, she is inherently bad pisses me off. Because she's not. She's a good woman. She's a loving woman. She's a generous woman. Despite the flaws, the dark parts of her that there are, I could not, and I don't think anyone who knows her could ever actually accuse her of being a bad person. My mom has done bad things. She's not a bad person. And being an addict isn't what has made her do all those bad things. Some of those bad things are just because she's human or because she didn't know not to do them. There's a lot of things. We look at our elders, we look at the people who are older than us, who come from a generation before us, and we expect them, especially when we're younger, to know a lot, to understand a lot. But the fact is, everything that we're learning new, about humanity, about psychology, about medical things, about sex, about gender, everything that we're learning new, most of them are also learning it new too. Most of them are learning that the things that were acceptable or allowed in their lives when they were younger were, they're understanding that these things were created by not necessarily good people, that these systems were built by maybe with good intentions, but were taken over and built up to what they are now by people with not necessarily good intentions. And so we learn things like racism, sexism, transphobia. We learn these things, and my mom's very open-minded, so luckily we've never had that problem. But the people of her generation, she's in her 60s, if they're open-minded, they'll be accepting to these new things, but they might still slip. They might still say things that we don't think is okay, and it still doesn't make them a bad person. I feel like there was a different point I was trying to make, but I kind of lost it. So the idea that addiction has anything to do really with a person's character is such a dangerous fallacy, because all addiction is a chemical response. It's a physical thing. Your body decides, or your body reacts to something and starts to feel like it needs that something, needs it. That is not that. You can be a sweet cupcake of a person and have an addiction, and you could be a complete shitheel of a person and have an addiction, but addiction is not going to make a cupcake a shitheel, and it's not going to turn a shitheel into a cupcake unless that addiction is opium, unless it is something that just makes them unconscious. It is not going to turn a bad person nice, and it is not going to make a nice person, a good person, bad. And I just keep seeing this online, and it's so upsetting. And I remember I I did, what was it called? It was a film festival here in New York. I can't remember the exact name. Fringe Fest, maybe? I think it was Fringe Fest. I did Fringe Fest, and I was doing lighting for a show. Home to Nebraska, Homeway Nebraska, something like that. Homeway Nebraska, something. I was doing lighting for this show. And that was cool. After the final show, the whole cast, crew, friends and family of the cast and crew, we all went out to eat. We sat at this long table, and I was sitting with, I think, one of my friends that I was working with, and I didn't know anybody else really. I didn't know the cast like that. I was in the lighting booth the whole time with my friend who had asked me to join. There were these elderly ladies, or there were these ladies who looked like what I would say your stereotypical Karen looks like, but with curly hair, not with that straight hair. But these ladies, these mostly blonde, somewhat graying, curly-haired, posh-looking ladies, some of them were teachers, and they were talking about educating and talking about lower income kids. And then someone said something about, I can't remember the exact words because this was years ago. This was like not long after I moved to New York, maybe 2015-ish. But basically she was like, those crackhead kids, you know. And I was like, huh, I'm a crackhead kid. And they were like, no, not you. And I was like, well, my mom was a crackhead. I was born a crackhead. I'm a crackhead kid. What are you saying? And they kind of clammed up and tried to change the subject. And I was like, And I didn't talk to them anymore, right? I wasn't trying to have an argument, but I was pointing out, what you're saying. Like, what are you saying? What is a crackhead kid? What does that mean? How do the children of drug addicts all express to you? Like, what are you saying? Being the child of a drug addict does not mean you're going to be a certain way, just as being a drug addict does not mean you're going to be a certain way. It doesn't mean you're a certain type of person. There are drug addicts who are very, very rich and in government. There are drug addicts who work as doctors. There are drug addicts who are janitors. There are drug addicts who are my mom. There are drug addicts who are like John Depp. There are drug addicts who are from every walk of life. And it has nothing to do with whether or not they're a good person. And I really hope every one of you understand that. I hope no one sees someone with an addiction and just decides that they are going to be a liar, that they're going to be a thief, that they are going to be an abuser, that they are going to be sexually aggressive, that they're going to be anything but who they are with an addiction, with a craving, with a need. And they need help. They need compassion. They need love. They need guidance. They need an environment where being clean is worth going through the pain for, so that they can be happy and healed. Worth going through the withdrawals for. They don't need to be judged and executed for having an addiction. Again, if you're a bad person, an addiction won't change that, and you'll still be a shitty person. And if you're a good person, addiction won't change that. And just, mentioning the Johnny situation, he's never been a bad person. He's never been known to be a bad person. No one out of thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have interacted with him, known him, worked with him, spent hours and hours and hours of time with him, loved and dated him, and one of them had children with him. All of these people tell you he is a good, gentle, kind person. Addiction will not change that. It won't. It does not matter. You will not become suddenly abusive to some other person when you never have been before, just because you have an addiction. You'd have to have a psychotic break. The drug would have to actually change the way your brain works, and you would not be yourself anymore. And that would be very noticeable to everyone. That wouldn't be something that could be hidden. That kind of change can't be hidden. It can't be just a one person saw it. And the fact that that one person, we have, like I said, all that evidence of what they've done. We have we've seen them lie, with no remorse for it. We've heard them with our own eyes. I have. Then why should I believe that person when they say that an addict who, as far as all of her evidence shows, was sleeping all the time, was doing these things, that we now have actual proof. Many of those things she's projecting because we know she's done it. We've heard her talking about having done those things. And then she sits up in court and says, oh, he did this. Like, bitch, that's not what we heard. That's not what you said out of your own mouth in this recording at the time. Contemporaneous evidence said, right? But then there are people outside listening to her and thinking, oh, well, yeah, he drank and he did drugs, so obviously he's bad and abusive. And that's bullshit. That is absolutely bullshit. Because no, just no. Addiction needs to be treated better in the United States. There are places, I think, where they do treat it pretty well, but addiction in the United States, we need to stop vilifying it. We need to treat it as the sickness that it is. We need to treat it as the healthcare problem that it is. And I know a lot of people are trying to get that, on bills and stuff. But as lay people on the street here, we need to start realizing that it is a health situation, not a character situation, not a behavior, personality situation. Your personality is your personality. And if you've seen your personality, we can trust that. We can trust who you are. And an addiction, like I said, it's not really that much of a factor. We need to care. We need to take care of people who are sick. We need to take care of and love and encourage them to fight the sickness, to try to push through the sickness. And again, that can be dangerous. So that's all, really. That's all I really wanted to say. If you're interested, and I'll put a link in the comments under this video. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about addiction from addicts, there is a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. And the YouTuber himself, he interviews addicts on Skid Row in California, and homeless people and people, sex workers and people from all walks of life that he finds, I think, specifically around Skid Row. And he talks to these addicts. 9 times out of 10, I'd almost go as far as saying 100% of the time, but I don't want to do that. I haven't watched all of his videos, but 9 times out of 10, you can see their light. You can see it though. You can see how much love they have and how much pain they've experienced that led them to where they are. Give me a second. There was one, and I watched months of her interviews, and she got clean, and she was on drugs for so many years, and she was a teenager into her 20s, but she got clean and followed that journey, and she started helping other addicts, just at shelters and things. She was helping people, but the damage her drug use and abuse that she suffered, sexual and physical abuse she suffered, it was too much, and she was clean for about 9 months. She was really beautiful and gaining weight because she had lost a lot of it. She was gaining weight. She was healthy. She was smiling. She was always smiling, even when she was high. He interviewed them when they were ready, whether they were sober or not. When they said okay, and he paid them and all that stuff. But she was always smiling, and she passed away after being sober for 9 months because all that damage it had taken over, and because I think it reached a point. I don't know for sure. I didn't know her personally. I think it reached a point that her body had lost its ability to produce whatever chemicals the drugs had been giving her. And so for a while, it maybe tried, but the damage internally was too much already. And that scares me a lot because of the people I know and love who are addicts and who don't necessarily have access to certain healthcare and things like that. It's just not fair. It's just not fair to equate addiction with abuse, with being a bad person, with hurting others. Because I know too many people who don't. And it's something they crave. It's their body. That doesn't make them bad. Okay, so I have to stop because I've made myself cry, and I apologize to anyone who gets uncomfortable with that. Although, if that makes you uncomfortable, the rest I've been talking about probably makes you a little uncomfortable too. I need to wash my face. I need to blow my nose. I'm feeling a little bit gross. I got a little bit sweaty. So that was it. Hopefully I reached a good point. Hopefully something of benefit came through this discussion, this chat. Feel free to discuss in the comments, to share what you want to share. Share your experiences if you feel comfortable to do so. If you have any experiences with addiction, whether your own or that of others. And, it's like, I guess part of why I said we is because I've had dealt with an eating disorder that was difficult, and it's something that I really have only gotten a hand of this year. I thought I had it last year, and then I slipped, and it's something that I still crave, and I still want to do and think about every now and then, almost every day. And it's an effort, and it gets easier. It gets easier and easier. At this point, it's very easy to say no. I let that go. I've moved on. That was my past, and I eat healthy. I eat balanced. I eat things that are good for me. I eat things that are right for my body. I drink water. I take care of myself. It's very easy. It's much easier now to do that. It hasn't been easy for years of trying to break the habit. So I guess that could be considered a type of addiction, disordered eating. I don't know. Either way, we need to be better about it. We need to treat people better. We need to treat addiction better. And I hope you know that. I hope you can take that with you. I hope you understand that. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to express myself to you. Thank you so much for being here. Not everybody gets out of addiction alive, so let's try to make the lives of addicts not harder. Of course, we don't enable them, we don't give them the drugs, but let's not make it so much harder. Let's not make it Let's not make them hate themselves for something that isn't really in their actual hands. The quitting, the effort to do that, yeah, but the addiction itself, it's not a choice anybody makes. So let's not make them hate themselves for this thing that they didn't choose. Thank you again for being here. I'm really gonna stop now because I'm just gonna keep going. Thank you for all of your love, all of your support of Maiden Circle. Again, if you would like a reading personally, you can book me. You can find me via the Linktree or via the Square site link. That's where you would book me. The Linktree is just sort of a middleman there. You can also support Maiden Circle through Patreon. There you'll get all of these videos, plus there, depending on your tier, you can get some free spells. You can get collective tarot readings. You can get whatever I decide to share with you there that's spiritual. Here you might get some sneak peeks at our upcoming Udemy course. We have a Udemy course. Go ahead and check that. We have 3 lessons there so far, and the 4th one coming. I'm working on it. Working on getting someone to help me do the videos, because after writing the scripts, recording the audio, then editing the audio, my mind is just like, you can't do more. So I need someone to help make the videos, and I had someone, but I'm in the process of finding someone else. And then we'll have lesson 4 up, and then there's more to come. So stay tuned. Thank you to everyone who's new to the group. I apologize if this is your first experience with the group. I apologize if it's a crying witch lady talking about drugs. Go ahead and check out our other videos. We talk about any and everything here, and witchcraft especially. Everything that we do as spiritual beings, as living beings, is part of our spiritual journey to me, including all the mundane and non-witchy things that we talk about is all part of the journey. So hopefully you find something that you value here, something that helps you in some way. So thank you. I'll talk to you all next week, maybe after my birthday. And if not, I'll talk to you the next week, but I'll talk to you soon. So until then, please take care of yourself. Know that you are loved, that there's not a moment that I'm breathing on this planet where you don't have someone who loves you, who's offering love to you. And hopefully, as long as you're breathing, you're giving yourself love as well. Know that you are never alone on this planet. Know that, like I said, all of our higher selves are up there dancing and talking with each other. We're all connected. And if you're struggling with addiction, I do hope you find the route that's for you. And if you just want someone to talk to, I'm not a therapist, but if you want someone just to talk to, let me know. Okay, so take care of yourselves. I love you all, always. Love you dearly. I love you forever. Please be good to yourselves and be well. Okay.